Hey book besties, welcome to my summer book recommendations video. My whole subscription box lately has been filled with summer TBRs and summer book recs, summer reading vlogs, and I had major FOMO, so I was like, I'm gonna film a summer book recommendations video. Even though here in Australia we finished our summer a couple of months ago and we're actually heading into winter, but I am going on vacation in July, so I will be having a summer trip, so technically this video does make sense. And I know some of you guys are going into summer anyway, so hopefully you find some new books to add to your summer TBR. I have so many books sitting in front of me, so I'm going to go through some summer book recommendations that I have read and also talk about some of the books that are on my summer TBR. But with that all being said, I'm going to start by talking about all the summer books that I have read that I would definitely recommend you guys need to check out. Some of these are books that I haven't really heard too many people talk about. Some of these are more popular, so you've probably heard of them, but hopefully either way you will find a new book to add to your summer TBR. The first summer book rec I have for you guys is Shipped by Angie Hockman. This is an enemies to lovers workplace romance, and we follow our two main characters, Henley and Graham. They are both up for this promotion and they work for a cruise company, and in order to compete for this promotion they actually need to take a company cruise to the Galapagos Islands. So you have a cruise setting and you've got like a tropical island setting. It gives you all the summer feels. I've never been on a cruise before and I have a huge fear of water, so I was like literally living through this book. It was so fun, so I definitely recommend this. If you guys have read or watched The Hating Game and you really enjoyed that book or movie, you will really like this book because it's kind of The Hating Game but set in obviously a tropical summer setting. Then I have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This is set in a small beach fishing town and it also has the grumpy sunshine opposites attract trope. So we follow Piper and Brendan. Piper is this LA socialite who actually gets sent to this small fishing town by her stepdad to kind of learn a lesson and grow up, and she meets this grumpy broody fisherman named Brendan and they get off on the wrong foot so many times, but obviously they keep running into each other because it is a small town and eventually, you know, things progress from there. It is a little bit of a slow burn, but it is so good. I loved this small town. If you love small town romances and you haven't read this book yet, you need to. The setting was one of my favorite things about the book. The side characters were also so wholesome and sweet, and it just has all the fun beach summer vibes that you would want. The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. If you are a huge Taylor Swift fan, if you're a Swiftie, you need to read this book if you haven't already, because there are so many Taylor Swift references and little Easter eggs of Taylor Swift songs and stuff that you can spot in here. That was one of my favorite things about this book. This is a YA romance, but I would say the romance kind of sits more as a subplot. Basically, we follow a main character, Meredith. She is grieving the loss of her sister who passed away a couple of years ago, and her and her family haven't been to Martha's Vineyard since the passing of her sister, but now they've got to go back because her cousin is getting married. And they have this traditional family game of assassin where Meredith's sister always won, and she kind of wants to keep her sister's legacy going on by winning this game of assassin, and she creates a secret alliance with the cute groomsman so that she can win, but they end up falling in love along the way. I really wish I could live in this book because yeah, it's so good. The Layover by Lacey Walden. This is very similar to Shipped in the sense that this is also an enemies to lovers and workplace romance. This one, our two main characters, Jack and Ava, are actually flight attendants, which is so cool. I loved reading about that aspect. Basically, they are stuck working the same shift together and they end up getting stuck on a layover in Belize, and it's like a luxury paradise vacation but like on a work thing, and it's like forced proximity. They're like stuck with each other. The banter in this book is so good. Then I got Sunkissed by Casey West. This is a YA coming of age romance. So we follow our main character Avery. She's just gone through a breakup and she is also about to start college, and her and her family go on this little summer trip which kind of reminded me a lot of Camp Rock for some reason. They go to this little camp resort in the wilderness, and while she's over there she meets this boy and they get along really well, and there's a lot of music and like coming of age. She's she's such a people pleaser and she's kind of like getting out of that. Romance is kind of more of a subplot in this one as well. This is more very focused on Avery's character development and getting out of her shell and stop being such a people pleaser and finding what she loves to do, and I really enjoyed that. So I think I would definitely recommend this one if you are looking for more of a coming of age YA romance. There's also no spice on this one as well. Then we have Kisses and Croissants. This is set in the summertime in Paris, France. So it's got all the romantic, cutesy summer feels in this one. We follow our main character, Mia, who is wanting to be a professional ballerina. So she gets accepted into this school in Paris to fulfill her dreams and also try to find out more about her ancestors who are also ballerinas as well. While she's there, she actually meets this boy named Louis, and they end up falling in love, but she's kind of stuck between her professional career as a ballerina or love and that kind of thing. Kind of like, it's almost sort of reminded me of Lizzie McGuire movie as well for some weird reason, but I really loved the setting of this book. I loved how cute it was. It was just such a sweet book. Then we've got Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. This book follows Bea and Samson. Bea comes from a life of poverty and Samson comes from like everything. Bea's mum passes away, so she has to go live with her dad, who she hasn't seen in years, and her dad has like this whole separate life with his new wife and his stepdaughter, and they are currently like vacationing in this summer beach house. So she's gone from like having nothing to now being a part of this family that has everything, and she meets Samson, who is their neighbor for the summer, and they end up striking a friendship, and it's kind of like opposites, but it's also like two broken people coming together to make each other whole, which I freaking love. This also just had all the good summer feels, and it also had that element of found family, I guess, as well, which I really enjoyed. Then we have A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow by Laura Taylor Namey. In this book, we follow Lila, who is really struggling with her mental health. So her parents actually send her off to England to kind of work on herself and better her mental health. And while she's there, she meets this really cute tea shop clerk who basically appoints himself as her personal tour guide. They end up falling in love, but then she obviously has to go back home, and they're kind of like doing a long distance as well, but that's like towards the end of the book. I loved the way that this book dealt with grief, because this book did talk a lot about mental health and grief and moving on and healing, and I really felt like this book did such a good job with that. And also I just really loved the cozy vibes, like tea shop, cakes, pastries. Like when you read this book, I guarantee you're going to be wanting a snack because you're going to be really hungry while you're reading this book, because there's a lot of talk about food. The Match by Sarah Adams. This one has the single dad trope, and we follow Jake and Evie. Evie works at the Southern Service Paws, where she basically matches service dogs to clients, and Jake's daughter needs a service dog, so Evie kind of helps match his daughter with one of their service dogs, and it's got forced proximity because like she's got to be there to kind of, you know, find the perfect dog and like help them settle in and stuff like that, and then they end up falling in love along the way. The daughter in this book is just so sweet and wholesome. She was adorable. Normally I'm not like a huge fan of kids in books, but this book, it was good. It was really good. It was so cute, especially because she was kind of like meddling in and trying to get her dad and Evie to get together. I love the service dog representation in this book. I think it was done really well. There's epilepsy representation as well, which I have never read in a book before, but I feel like Sarah Adams did a really good job incorporating that into this book. Then I have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. Now I actually ended up rating this one 3 stars. I wasn't a huge fan of this book, but I do know a lot of the people that have read this book really loved it, so I wanted to include it in my summer book recommendations video because I did enjoy the book up to the 75% mark. I really liked the writing of the story, but I didn't like the plot twist at the end and a specific trope that was introduced, which I'm not going to mention because I don't want to spoil the book. This has the childhood friends to lovers and second chance romance trope, and it is set in this little lake house in Canada. So we follow Persephone and Sam, who have been best friends since they were like 12 years old, and they have met and spend the summer together every summer. But then on their very last summer, something happens that causes a huge fallout, and they haven't spoken to each other in years, like over a decade, and then they have to meet again for Sam's mother's funeral. So Persephone has to go back to this small lake house, and you know, they have to meet again after not contacting each other for little over a decade. Like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I did like the writing. I just wasn't a huge fan of the female main character, and I also didn't really like the ending. I feel like it was too rushed. A book that I absolutely did love that I think should be added to your summer TBR if you haven't read it already is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. It's a childhood enemies to lovers and forced proximity. They're neighbors. If you watch the movie The Duff, that movie is very similar to this book. Like, it's so similar to that one. We follow Liz, who is a major rom-com movie buff, and she's always wanted her dream prom proposal, and her childhood crush actually comes back to her small town, and she is wanting to win him over and get him to ask her to prom. The only person that can kind of get her in with this guy is her childhood enemy and neighbor, Wes. So Wes kind of like helps her out in exchange for Liz giving his parking spot for like the year or something. It's so good because it also has the guy falls first trope, which I absolutely adore. The enemies to lovers in this was just great. I love the banter. I love Lynn Painter's writing, and if you love seeing rom-com references and stuff, you'll love this one. This book also has Taylor Swift references, so if you are a Swiftie, you will probably like this one too. Overall, really love this book. Then I have The Fill-In Boyfriend by Casey West. This is also another YA romance with no spice in it. It does have the fake dating trope. So we follow Gia, who actually gets dumped on prom night by her boyfriend, but she needs to walk into prom with a boyfriend because otherwise no one's going to believe that she's been dating this guy that she keeps talking about. So she finds this guy in a parking lot and randomly is like, do you want to be my fake date to prom? Then they start making this fake dating arrangement, so she helps him out and he helps her out to be each other's fake dates, but they end up falling in love for real along the way. It's such a quick and easy book. If you love the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series, this is kind of similar to that, so I do recommend that. Then I've got Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This isn't necessarily a huge summer book, but this book did still give me some summer vibes in it because it's a 70s rock band, and every time I think of Daisy Jones and the Six, it gives me like summer retro vibes, so that's why I'm including this book in here. I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably read this book or watched the TV series on Amazon Prime or have at least heard of this book because it is so popular. But basically Daisy Jones and the Six are a fictional rock band, and they were like really big, but then they broke up, and this whole book is set in an interview podcast sort of style from every single character's perspective, and you get to know how the band formed, what made them break up, all the scandals, all of that stuff. This book literally has music in it as well that you can listen to the official Daisy Jones and the Six band while reading it. I highly recommend reading this as an audiobook as well because each character has a different narrator and it's like a podcast that you're listening to, and it's so good. Then I have Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. This book is a opposites attract, bad boy, good girl kind of trope. So we follow Ruthie, who works at this retirement village, and she also lives there as well. She's very much like an old soul type of character. And then we have Teddy, who's a complete opposite. He's kind of like this bad boy, and he is wanting to own his own tattoo parlor. He's very much extroverted. Him and Ruthie don't have the best first impression because he mistakes Ruthie for an actual old lady, but then they have to meet again because Teddy is forced to be working at the retirement village by his dad to save up and also prove to his father that he can be taken seriously and that he is responsible. So there is forced proximity, so they kind of have to work together and they end up falling in love. I also really love that they both balance each other out really well because they are quite different, but like they bring out some really good qualities in each other. Like Teddy brings Ruthie out of her shell and Ruthie kind of grounds Teddy, and I just really loved their dynamic. I'm gonna quickly mention these two books together. So I've got Set on You and X's and O's by Amy Lee. Both of these are part of the Influencers series. Set on You is a gym romance. We have a curvy fitness influencer and a firefighter, and it's also enemies to lovers at the gym. And then X's and O's is book influencer and firefighter, and it's roommates. And our main character is a huge hopeless romantic, and she is out to go revisit all of her exes and try to create her own second chance romance. But what does she get? She gets romance instead. You guys all know I'm obsessed with this book, but I highly recommend this. The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This one is a friends to lovers and one of us is famous trope. We follow Brie, who is a ballerina, and her best friend Nathan, who is a famous football player. They have been secretly pining for each other for years, but neither neither of them know that the other has feelings. They think that they've friend-zoned each other when they actually haven't. And then they get into this fake dating situation. They've actually got to fake date, but obviously real feelings come out. These characters were just so wholesome and sweet. And even though this is an adult romance, there is no spice at all. It's just very wholesome, closed door vibes. And this book also has some great panic attack mental health representation. And I really like that Sarah Adams actually made Nathan the one experiencing panic attacks, because I feel like men in books are not always represented as, like, you know, being vulnerable. And I really like that Sarah Adams was able to portray that in a really realistic and good way. Like, I really appreciated that, and definitely recommend. It's so good. Then I've got The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, which is an enemies to lovers and fake marriage, and it's set in Hawaii, so you know the summer vibes are there. So we follow Olive and Ethan. They have to go on this honeymoon together, except they actually hate each other and they're definitely not married, let alone dating, but they've got to pretend to be like in love, newly wedded and married, to be able to go to Hawaii and experience this honeymoon. It's such a fun book. It's definitely got all the summer feels, so I highly recommend this one. I feel like that was a lot, but those are the summer book recommendations that I've read that I would recommend to you guys. Now I'm going to quickly go through some of the summer books that are on my summer 2023 TBR. So first up, I have got Hook, Line and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is the second book following from It Happened One Summer. This is Fox and Hannah's story, which are the two side characters from the first book, and their trope is friends to lovers, and it's still set in the small beach fishing town of Westport, Washington. And I'm super excited for this one because I did really like these two characters in the first book. Then I've got Things We Never Got Over and Things We Hide from the Light. These are part of the Knock 'Em Out series. These are both small town romances as well, and Grumpy Sunshine. I think both of these are Grumpy Sunshine. Don't really know too much outside of that, but I know these two are really popular on BookTok, so I need to get on to reading these. My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. This is a spicy romance with a murder mystery subplot included, which I have never heard of before, but it sounds really interesting. So I think the main female character is super into true crime, and there's like a murder on this vacation that she's attending, and then there's the bounty hunter that she meets, and she's like, oh, I am like very into true crime, I can totally help out with this one. I have no idea how this book is going to be because I have heard a lot of mixed reviews, but I'm very intrigued because the murder mystery aspect in a romance book, I've never heard of that before, but it sounds very interesting. Then I've got Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Absolutely love this cover. It is stunning. This one is a second chance romance and childhood friends to lovers. I am really excited to read this. I'm definitely hoping to read it in June because it is on my June TBR, but also so many of my favorite booktubers like Sarah Caroli and Steph Bora love this book, like they rated it 5 stars. So I've got high hopes, but I know that this is compared a lot to Every Summer After, which I wasn't a huge fan of. So hopefully I love this one a lot more than that book, fingers crossed. I've also got Something Wilder, which is also by Christina Lauren. This one is really interesting. It's another second chance romance, but this book is also involving like this treasure hunt, and it's set in Utah. That sounds really interesting, like a book that's surrounding a treasure hunt and like second chance forced proximity. That sounds so interesting, so different for sure. So I'm really excited for this because it sounds very adventurous, so perfect summer vibes. Then we've got When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This is not set in Rome, Italy though. It's set in Rome, Kentucky. It's also got the One of Us is Famous trope, and it's set in a small town of Rome, Kentucky. So we follow Amelia Rose, who's like this pop princess, and she wants to have this little getaway. So she goes over to Rome, Kentucky, but then her car breaks down and she has to stay with this guy named Noah, who is this pie shop owner, and she kind of lives this little small town getaway for a little bit, but they end up falling in love. But you know, she has to go back. It's kind of like that little debacle. It sounds really interesting because I love food in books and like a man that can cook. Yes, please. We love that. So excited for this one. Sarah Adams can honestly do no wrong. And then I've got the Summer I Turn Pretty trilogy. So I've got The Summer I Turn Pretty, We'll Always Have Summer, and It's Not Summer Without You. This is a YA summer romance series. I feel like everyone's either read this series or watched the Amazon Prime TV show, but I'm saving these specifically for July. I'm hoping to read this on the plane over to my vacation because I feel like these are the perfect vibes to enter it. And And last but not least on my summer TBR is the Love and Paperback collection. Yes, this is still in the box, don't mind that, but this series involves Love and Gelato, Love and Luck, and Love and Olives. They are all YA romances. Each book actually set in a different country. So Love and Gelato is in Italy, Love and Luck is in Ireland, and Love and Olives is in Greece. Literal European summer vibes, which I'm so here for. So I really want to read the series. I've heard that this is just so wholesome and fun and sweet, and they've also got like great interesting family subplots as well, so I'm really intrigued by that. Yeah, I'm super excited to have my little European summer through books, because realistically I can't afford to go to Europe at the moment, so I'm gonna be living through these book characters in this series. So that concludes the summer book recommendations and summer TBR video. I feel like I've been talking for so long, so I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but hopefully you have found some new books to add to your summer TBR. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, or what books you're going to be adding to your TBR from this video, and let me know what books you guys think I should take with me on vacation, because I know I'm definitely going to take the Summer I Turn Pretty series, but I don't know if I want to take anything else. And leave me any summer book recommendations that I probably have missed out on, because obviously I love adding more books to my never-ending TBR pile. But if you guys did enjoy watching, please give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below. I post new videos every single week. I will see you all in my next video. Bye!